So here's the thing. We're all aware of strategies and techniques and tools that we can integrate into our daily life that can have a substantial impact on our mental and emotional well-being. And they range from medication to meditation, getting adequate sleep, ensuring that you look after your nutrition, your exercise levels, connecting with yourself, connecting with others, connecting to a higher power, implementing creativity in your day-to-day life, trying to find a sense of fulfillment in the things that you do, finding ways to contribute, finding ways to serve, and having a contemplative and reflective practice. But here's a caveat to all of that. No matter how many of these things you implement, you are still going to have rough days. You are still going to have days where you struggle, and you are going to find it hard to get any comfort from any of these practices. And the reason I'm talking about this is I'm after a particularly rough week. Now, when I reflect on it, there's a whole host of things that possibly contribute to me hitting a low. However, that being said, I hadn't experienced a week like that for a substantial amount of time. And in a way, I'm grateful for it. Not then, but I am now, because it highlighted to me again how difficult it is to do the things that people seem to feel obliged to advise you to do when you're in that rough place. You know, to just think positively, to remember all of the things that you have to be grateful for, to find things that you can appreciate in your daily life, and to stick with your routine. And I mean, that's all very fine and well in theory, but when you're in that rough place, you can be just struggling to exist in your own skin. Or I know that's how I feel. I tend to turn inward quite quickly. I turn on myself and I become very self-loathing, very self-berating, and I really struggle, as I said, to be in my own existence. I get very angry with myself. I become very pessimistic, very hard to be around. And I think oftentimes when people say things, although they mean well, their intentions are good, it's more about them being uncomfortable with your state as opposed to, you know, them trying to be anyways condescending or patronizing. And it's just recognizing that just because they cannot tolerate your experience does not invalidate your experience, nor does it mean that you have to fast track your way out of it. Because oftentimes I think when we're in that shitty place, we feel so bad about it that we make ourselves feel 100 times worse. We feel guilty, we feel ashamed. And again, there's this paradigm for positivity, you know, that we need to turn everything around really quickly, come out the other side, be the warrior, you know, and have a story to tell, as opposed to being like, okay, do you know what, I'm really struggling, I don't know what the solution is right now, and all I can do is take one moment at a time, one breath at a time, and try just to remain relatively grounded, to practice deep breathing. Because I think sometimes as well people are like, oh, just meditate. I mean, the last thing you want to do when your brain is in a complete fog, when you are just in this negative tailspin, is to meditate and to actually spend time with all of that. So it's about recognizing what works for you in any given moment. And I suppose I'm always conscious of the fact that I do advise people to avoid soothing using external sources, but sometimes it's okay to eat. Sometimes it's okay to just go to bed early. Sometimes it's okay to not continue to function just for a little while and lick your wounds a little bit. And it's about finding what works for you in any given moment. And I suppose I always feel as well, as I said, we are given such cultural messages about what's okay and what's not okay. And I've been listening to an awful lot of Glennon Doyle lately, and I was so delighted to listen to her the other day, because again, when I went into that bit of a head fucky place, I very much struggled with my body. That's one of my default settings. I automatically hate on myself, and sometimes I am so critical when I go into that headspace, because I work in the field that I'm in and I assume that I need to feel positive about my body all the time, and the reality is I don't. half of the time I'm lucky if I can just about find acceptance for it and treat it with the kindness that it deserves. And yet, as I said, because there is this paradigm of body positivity and having to love the skin that you're in, you feel guilty for the fact that you don't particularly love your body on that given day or wherever it is that you're at. And I suppose it's recognizing that you can still be kind to your body and not be completely infatuated with it, and that you can still struggle and be a decent person, that you don't always have to be positive, that you don't always have to be grateful, that you don't always have to kind of fast track your way through your sadness or whatever it is that you're experiencing and become more resilient as a consequence. That will happen, but it'll happen in its own time, and we have to be tolerant with ourselves, we have to be patient with ourselves, and we have to allow ourselves to fully move through what it is that we're going through. And it takes a lot of courage and compassion to actually sit with your pain and to work through it, to recognize it and to honor it, as opposed to running from it. And yes, oftentimes as a consequence of pain, we become more compassionate and understanding, we become kinder, we become more empathetic, and we become stronger and more resilient. However, that being said, we can't fast track our way to the positive consequences, no matter how much we or other people would like us to. And it's bad enough that we have our own resistance, that we have our own compulsion to numb out or avoid dealing with our experience, without having societal pressure telling us that we need to be positive, that we need to come out the other side, you know, that bad things happen for a reason, or that, you know, kind of it'll all work out for the greater good, when we just need people to witness where we're at and allow us to be there, and where we need to allow ourselves to actually be there. And I suppose I was only thinking about this the other day. I mean, it's kind of going off topic a little bit, but it's just with regards the cultural thinking on motherhood. Even I have found so many times that my experience hasn't fit in with the paradigm for parenting that we see that is so common, and how shamed I have felt about that, how embarrassed I felt, and how inadequate I felt. And it's taken me a substantial amount of time to work through that. And at the moment, my husband takes my son away sometimes at the weekends to go down to visit his grandparents. And I have to say, I revel in the time. I get to be creative, I write, I do things that just bring back the version of me that I was before I had kids. And I love being a mom. I am besotted with my child. I mean, literally the other day, he took my breath away with the intensity of adoration I have for him. But I also love time away from him. And I was speaking to somebody about it the other day, and I just said, you know, Owen's away for the weekend with his dad, and they said, again? And I was like, yeah, again. And they said, oh my God, you must miss him so much. And I just responded by saying, no, I actually love it. I love the time. Like, I love the break. I look forward to him coming back, but it's just so nice. I get to go to bed at 7:30 in the evening. I don't have to put a baby down. You know, I get to do all the things that I love to do. I get to be by myself. I really, really am quite an introvert, and I do love time in silence, and you don't get much of that with the toddler. And I suppose again I felt this kind of judgment. Now, disclaimer, I do tend to be highly sensitive, so maybe I'm reading too much into this, but a sense of judgment that I wasn't devastated to be separated from my child for 24 hours. And again, as I said, it's just about allowing yourself to be who you are without coating yourself in a layer of shame just because you do not fit into what the culture or the society thinks you ought to. I hope everyone is having a great Sunday. I will talk to you again soon. If you'd like to work with me on an individual basis, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.